When it comes to improving at Apex or anything really, it can be difficult to improve fast if you don't even know the mistakes you're making. I mean, it's hard to correct something you didn't even know needs correcting. So today I have 3 really common mistakes that many players don't know they're making, so if you are making them, you can start working on correcting them now. But if you want to improve faster and get more in-depth guides so that you don't make any mistakes, make sure to head over to the GameLeap website, where I personally have literally made hundreds of guides to help you improve faster. Guides covering fundamentals, advanced movement techniques, advanced legend tutorials, gameplay breakdowns, legend abilities, legend strategies, and so much more. We've spent a lot of time and do our best to give full analytical breakdowns that will actually help you in whatever goal it is you have in the game. So if you actually want to learn and become insane at the game, I highly recommend you join the GameLeap family to get instant access to all of these in-depth guides by checking out the link in the description below. Alright, for our first mistake, it's not disengaging from third parties. Now, we all know that Apex is just a cesspool of third parties, so not knowing how to deal with them is simply not an option. So how do you deal with them exactly? Well, your first instinct might be to just focus on them instead of the team that you were originally fighting, or if you had just killed the original team, you might be tempted to just continue fighting the third party. Yeah, don't do that. The whole point of third partying is to put yourself in a position where you have a significant upper hand due to health, resources, and positioning. So when a third party comes, more than likely they will have all of these advantages stacked against you. And as you know, the more of a disadvantage you are at, the more likely you're going to lose. Also, 1 + 1 = 2. Yes, I know this is obvious, but people will still stand their ground and try taking on the third party out of panic or because they feel like they have no choice. And I am guilty of this as well. This is something I still do to this day from time to time. And sometimes you won't actually have a choice because their advantages against you are so strong that there's literally nothing you can do about it. So you just have to fight your way out of it. But the main reason for that situation is because of positioning more than anything else. This is why it is super important you are always positioning yourself well during fights, because if a third party shows up and traps you, it makes it extremely difficult to recover. A great example of this is when you kill a team, then start to loot. Usually those loot boxes are in the open or just in bad positions, and it makes it easy for a third party to take advantage of you. Luckily, the loot boxes can provide enough resources to recover from this sometimes, but not always, so you have to make sure you're looting quick and ready to move to a more optimal position. But in general, you should always be trying to keep yourself in a position where you have some sort of escape, but you also need to make sure that you are being more aware of possible third parties in general. The closer into the fight you are, the harder this becomes because you lose perspective when you are so close to enemy players. This is why dancing around mid-range and using tactics to pull the initial enemy team into bad positions can be far more effective than just kind of pushing in. It allows you to maintain a more broad perspective of the initial fight itself, as well as a more broad perspective of your surroundings in case a third party shows up. Now, I admit I went on a little bit of a tangent there, but this is all important information for you to know in order to support the idea of putting yourself in a position to have the freedom to disengage from a fight whenever you need to. Having a broader perspective is going to make this significantly easier, and maintaining good hyper awareness and positioning will do this as well. And the number one reason this is so critical in regards to third parties is because it allows you to third party the third party. Generally, when the third party shows up, they are going to go for the team that seems to be in a stronger position because it basically puts 2 teams against the stronger one, and once that threat is eliminated, they can now finish off the team that was already in a weaker state. At least that should be the third party's goal, but sometimes they will just shoot whoever. Either way, if you are doing your job right, no matter which team you are, you should be positioning yourself in a way that will allow you to back out of the fight, which will make the third party turn their focus to the other team, and that's why you never ever want to be in the middle of 2 teams or in a position that will make you vulnerable to being pinched between 2 teams, because it basically makes it impossible to achieve this. Now, once those 2 teams take over the engagement, you can then quickly heal up and then reposition yourself in a place of advantage to that third party, taking the same principle into consideration of making quick work with the stronger team so that thereafter you can have an easy cleanup with the weaker team. Now, for our next mistake, it's using grenades for damage. Now, obviously grenades can be absolutely amazing when it comes to damage. I mean, there's a reason why fuse can be so annoying and why the wingman was such a problem before the sniper changes. It's because they allowed you to carry a ton of grenades or heals, and grenades by themselves can be extremely oppressive when you start spamming them. However, most of the time we generally can only carry so many grenades depending on our loadout, and a very common mistake people tend to make, including myself, is just throwing your nade, pray for the best, and call it a day. We absolutely have to be more tactical with how we use our grenades, because the biggest benefit of a nade is not its damage, but its ability to force positioning and control space. Let me ask you this. In general, when do you throw a grenade? Usually it's when a player is behind cover, right? And what do players do when there is a grenade indicator on the screen? They run, at least I do. This means you can use grenades to force players into worse positions, or more commonly, force them into a more specific direction, allowing you to get easier shots on them because, well, their movements are predictable. Another example is that you can use them to help maintain space on an enemy push and make them rethink trying to push after cracking you. If you use a frag on a player who is annoying you from the high ground, you can force them back down or knock them off even. Thermites can be used as a block, area denial, or even a smoke screen if you need to buy yourself time. Ordinances in general offer you, Ordinance in general offer you one of the most important things in the game, and that is control over the fights. So try to put more intention behind each grenade rather than just YOLOing it. Remember that you can use them to flush out players or to trap them into a bad position, allowing you to have a greater advantage overall. Focus more on the position of where your grenade will be and where it will force the enemy rather than, well, is it going to do damage? And one more thing to know with grenades, if you are going to use it for damage, you absolutely need to start practicing vertical grenades. I know it may seem an impossible or daunting task at first, but I promise you it is something you can learn and achieve. If a big old dummy like me can do it, so can you. Grenades are just too easy to get away from, so if you're not using it for spatial control and are just trying to do some damage, then vertical grenades are 100% the play, unless it's an arc star or a thermite, obviously. Just spend a few minutes every day in the firing range practicing vertical grenades at different distances on the target dummies. Then when you go into actual matches, force yourself to take frags over the others and always attempt to do a vertical grenade. Just force yourself to do it. Once you hit that first one, you will never look at grenades the same, I promise. And for our final tip, it's actually one you might not expect, but it's expecting your teammates to follow through. Regardless of who it is, your best friend, a rando, your girlfriend, or boyfriend, it does not matter. You cannot read their mind and they cannot read yours. Even if you are communicating, you can't expect them to do exactly what you want them to do because each perspective is different. So even if it seems like they could have pushed up with you, doesn't mean they actually could. They may have had to bat, or maybe a Watson suddenly fenced them away, making you isolated with the enemy team without you even realizing it. So it doesn't always just chalk up to them being bad or not paying attention or communicating. And even if that is the case, it is still important that you don't have these expectations 100% all the time. Why? Because when you have expectations, you will make moves based on those expectations. This leads to bad positioning, getting isolated, bad decision making, and eventually death. Generally, your games will go better if you play off of your teammates rather than always expecting them to play off you, or if you go in with a mindset of them not even actually existing. When you have that mindset of you are on your own, you are going to make much smarter decisions based on that fact alone. Now, with that said, that doesn't mean teamwork isn't important or that resonating with your teammates is impossible. Of course it is. And when it happens, it is truly an amazing feeling. But if you always have your expectations high, it is only a matter of time that you will be let down. And that leads to tilt, toxicity, and even depression or anxiety for some. So be careful on how you approach your mindset. And remember, you, I, and everyone else are just people trying to have fun. Mistakes will be made, and that's okay. Play to the best of your own ability, and doing so can help massively to avoid tilt. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.